This is the 10 Minutes with Andrew podcast. And now, here's Andrew.
My heart was broken. My heart was broken. Sorrow.
Welcome back to 10 Minutes with Andrew. I'm, of course, Andrew again, joined with Marner Chancey. Welcome back to the show.
My heart was broken. It was about a year ago. I think we did the exact same show.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had been doing the show a year before that, we would have done the exact same show.
We would have.
And if we had done the show 11 years before that, we would have been doing the exact same show.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what we're doing today on the show. I can guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So, what are we doing today, my son?
Well, the Leafs lost to the Panthers.
Yes, they did. But apparently the Leafs aren't as bad as the Hurricanes.
The Hurricanes are down 3-0. They had a horrible game. They've had three horrible games.
The Hurricanes are getting dummied by the Panthers.
But speaking of dummied, the Leafs got dummied as well in Game 7. They were blown out on home ice 6-1. And if you think we're talking about Game 5, we're not, because it was the same score. No, it was the same result in Game 7.
Go! It was a wee bit embarrassing.
It was a wee bit embarrassing. So it was. The game was interesting because it started off the first 5 minutes and it was all Panthers, and then the Leafs weathered the storm, as they said, for the last 15 minutes. And we got to the second period, and the official got taken out, and then it was Seth Jones scored, and then really it was just an onslaught from there. It just kept going over and over and over again. And Domi got the one goal. Nothing really matters for the Leafs, and it got to the point late in the third, people were throwing jerseys on the ice again. Someone threw a beer on the ice, all that kind of stuff.
You know it's bad when someone throws a beer on the ice because they're about $30 a beer at Scotiabank Arena.
But the bigger point is, obviously, the Leafs have had a bunch of media availabilities this week, and the core four era has got to be over at this point. We cannot justify bringing back the same four guys again. There's no way they're going to do that. Mitch Marner's contract is up. John Tavares' contract is up. Now, again, does that mean that John Tavares will come back? Probably on cheaper deals, whatever. I've heard cut it in half, which is pretty good, 5.5. But Mitch Marner,
I think he'll take a pay cut to stay. I don't know if he'll go in half.
That's what Chris Johnson said, was in half.
But I think at his age, he wants to stay in his hometown and not be moving around again. But who knows?
But yeah, Mitch Marner's contract is up. He is basically, as Chris Johnson put on overdrive, 1 foot out the door and the door almost completely closed. So he's basically well gone at this point.
Woohoo! Hang on, keep it quiet. You say Mitch Marner might be gone?
I did.
Woo! All right, I'm okay with that. I've only been calling for that for at least 5 years.
But the biggest thing, I guess, that happened over the last couple of weeks is Brendan Shanahan, or last week I should say. Brendan Shanahan's out. His contract was not renewed by MLS. He is no longer the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Shanahan, the good things and the bad things. I think on Overdrive, Hayes had a list of the best moves he made and the worst moves he made. And by all accounts, it appears as though, although as bad as Dubas was, it appears as though Shanahan was the problem. In fact,
I don't know about that.
In fact, I was listening to something the other day, Steve Dangle podcast. He's an agent in the NHL. He talked about how the Leafs were about to trade for Marc-Andre Fleury a couple of years ago when he got traded to Chicago. And they were talking about how he was on the phone with Dubas, and Dubas went up, and Dubas had to go upstairs and get it approved, and he called him back and said, trade got nixed. So maybe he was, I think, I think Shanahan's probably the problem here.
I don't think Marc-Andre Fleury was the answer. And ultimately, I guess you could say it's Shanahan's fault because he believed in the core over and over and over again, and he was wrong. But ultimately, it's the core's fault.
It is
because they don't show up in big moments. They never have, and they never will.
We heard from Keith Pelley.
That's enough for our show, I guess. What? We done?
No, we heard enough. We heard from Keith Pelly,
I saw a little bit of that yesterday. Actually, I was watching it.
and
He says all the right things.
he did say all the right things. We've not heard from Treliving yet. I mean, we may not, but probably next week. I would say we're going to hear from Treliving. He was in Calgary during the.
I don't think Pelly or Treliving own any of this.
No, I don't think so.
This was the fault of Kyle Dumbass. This is what he left Treliving with. Stuff he couldn't do anything about, especially with the core four. But
also,
it's going to be a different team next year, I hope.
Craig Berube, from what I've heard, is actually going to get a bigger role on the team, or a higher role, I should say. Well, also
I don't have a problem with that. Let the hockey guys make the hockey decisions. And
Berube also spoke on Monday with the players, and Berube said that he would 100% like to see Marner and Tavares back.
That's too bad. I like Berube. Now I don't.
But then you have
Tavares, I take at half price. Marner, I put him on a slow boat to China.
You have to
Wave
understand.
goodbye.
I mean, what else is he going to say? Like, he's not just going to say, I want him out. So he probably doesn't actually want him back. Probably saw what we all saw, but he just had to say that in front of the media.
Yeah, maybe so.
So
I thought it was interesting in Game 7 at one point, Marner turned to the bench and said, wake the F up.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. That's the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? Idiot.
Oh, the irony.
There's no irony. That guy just is not built for the playoffs. Never will be.
No, he's not at all. And, so, there was a thing about Shanahan the other day about the Islanders talked to him. The Islanders have hired a new GM, so apparently Shanahan's out of that job. But, I mean, when we beat Ottawa, whatever, we beat Ottawa. I think a lot of teams could beat Ottawa in the first round. And then we took the 2-0 lead, and I think a lot of Leaf fans, and maybe I probably say myself included to a certain degree, got a little too overconfident with that 2-0 lead because, it was 2-0 on the Panthers. It was kind of a big deal. But then Florida took the next three, and the Leafs did what they do every single year, where they win Game 6, they fight to win Game 6, they shut out the Panthers at home, and they go back and in other years it would be like they'd have a 3-1 lead, then we go to overtime, and then they lose. But
at least they didn't keep us up all night.
Yeah, this year they did something different. They just got destroyed. It was, go back to overdrive for a second. He's actually set on overdrive, like he was saying. As bad as Game 5 was, Game 7 was way worse. And I would agree with that because, it's just,
I'm enjoying it now. It's just fun every year. How bad can they get?
Yeah.
How can they outdo themselves the year previous? And every year they don't disappoint us.
That's true.
No, Matthews needs to take a serious look in the mirror. I don't think he's built for playoff hockey. Marner, we know my thoughts on him. Nylander was just baggage. Tavares seemed to be the only one that was trying. I think they got a future with Matthew Nyes.
Yeah.
Defense looks pretty good. Goaltending looks pretty good, but they have to shake up their top two lines big time. And they got to get some more punch out of their third and fourth lines, too.
Yeah.
They got a bit of work to do. They're a long way from Florida Panthers level.
Pacioretty also said, by the way, he might not come back next year, might retire.
Yeah, that won't hurt us.
No. Leafs need a guy like Barkov.
Yeah.
That's what the Leafs need.
They need a strong leader, strong silent type leader. Not a captain who comes out after and says there were too many passengers.
Yeah, I don't know if that comes
when he was probably the biggest passenger of all.
Yeah.
What he should have said was, I got to stop being a passenger in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it's going to look different next year.
So am I.
I'm hoping we go after Mr. Marchand.
Me too.
Because Marner out, Marchand in, that's a major improvement. Major improvement.
Some people were asking about Bennett, and I've heard some insiders said that Bennett apparently wants to stay in Florida. So that's
going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get anybody out of Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to live in a nice warm climate, but you're also on a Stanley Cup championship team every year, so that's a tough sell. Come on up north to the cold. What else you got there?
How crazy would it be to see Marchand in a Leaf uniform? That'd be kind of crazy. After everything...
Same thing with Darcy Tucker and Shane Corson and all those people that you never thought you'd see in a Leaf uniform. The minute they put it on, you're in love with them.
Yeah.
The minute they put it on.
Marchand's one of those guys where if he's not on your team, you hate him, but if he's on your team, you love him. I think that's what Marchand
just like Darcy Tucker.
Yeah.
But they need a bit more bite in their game. There's no doubt about that.
If you had to take a guess, I'm not saying it might be impossible to do. Where do you think Marner will end up?
Oh, jeepers.
Because you said a couple of days ago.
Probably the Peterborough Beer League. Maybe?
No, but I was going to say, like, I was thinking...
I wouldn't doubt Kyle Dumbass will make a big play for him.
I think Pittsburgh.
And that's fine. Go play with Sid for a couple of years, get your 100 points or your 99 points, and then disappear in the playoffs for them. Although they probably won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, probably not.
I could care less. He's a talented guy when you're playing shinny hockey. When the games matter, you cannot count on Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and to some degree Tavares. Just disappointment after disappointment. I hope we're done with it this year. We always say we are, and big changes are coming. And so far Shanahan's gone. I hope that's not the only change.
Some people were saying when they were listening to Keith Pelley talk, they thought that it sounded like they were going to run it back again, like based on the way he was speaking. But
well, if they feel they have an allegiance to Mitch Marner, I don't get it.
No.
I do not get it. How many times do you need to see it to know it can't happen?
It's true. It's a good point, yeah.
What are you reading? Your emails, are you?
No, that was my weekly screen time report. I don't know why that came in.
Oh, yeah? What's that at now?
3 hours.
3 hours a week?
14 minutes. I don't know what that is. I don't even read them.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't even read them. I just get them.
Seems low to me.
It does seem low. So who do you think now with the 4 teams that are left is going to win the Stanley Cup?
Florida.
Florida?
Yeah. Florida.
I was going to say Dallas, but okay.
Boys, Edmonton or Dallas, you got to come up against Florida, and you may take them 6 or 7, but you got to come up against Florida, and Florida is rolling right now.
They are rolling. They are very much rolling. I think, honestly, if the Leafs had gotten past Florida, they would have beaten Carolina.
I think the Leafs would have beaten Carolina.
Yeah.
Don't know how they would have done in a final, but who cares? Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Who cares?
You know what they say about if your aunt had testicles?
Well, okay. Okay.
She'd be your uncle.
I know. You said testicles, but you also said dumbass earlier.
I'm being very mindful of the audience.
Yes, but you just said testicles before you said dumbass.
Let's move on to something else.
Do you understand? You understand my point,
Speaking of dumbass.
You understand my point?
Speaking of dumbass. You got anything else?
Blue Jays lost, I think, again last night.
Blue Jays lost 3-1 to the Rays. They really have a hard time with the Rays, no matter what.
They really do. They very much do.
So now they're back to being a game under 500. For 2 games ago, they were a game over. Now they're a game under, and the $500 million man still just kind of slugging along, being your average player.
Yeah, they beat the brakes off the Padres the other night, and Vlad did nothing. Like 1 for 5.
But this is where the Blue Jays are. They're going to be a team that struggles, I think, to finish at 500, and we'll reevaluate at the end of the year.
Hopefully to the end of Shapiro and Atkins.
Hopefully.
And maybe, I don't know.
Who?
Schneider,
yeah. He should have gone long ago.
He'll probably
not a major league
fired
manager.
mid-season. He'll get fired mid-season, right?
Not a major league manager.
That's the last card they can play. He'll get fired mid-season, right?
Yeah, he'll be sacrificed to try to save the other jobs, and then hopefully Ed Rogers wakes up.
I guarantee you that they'll fire Schneider and give the job to Mattingly.
Well, I don't think that's a good. You need fresh eyes and new blood in that organization. It's just so stale.
That's what they do. They make in-house changes.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else over there?
No.
All right. Well, I would say we're probably not going to be doing a show next Sunday.
Probably not.
Big birthday coming up this week.
Yeah, my birthday's on Thursday.
Number 16, just like Mitchie Marner.
That's great stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
Mitch
We
Marner.
got a end-of-year bowling banquet.
Well, we may or may not be Family Twosome champions
We
again.
may or may not be champions. We'll find out. But then we're moving.
But you won't be there because I think
And a
you're gonna,
birthday party. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be a show in the works because I would say all of the equipment is going to be in a box.
probably, I would say.
More than likely.
Hopefully next time we do a show, we'll have better audio. And better setup.
We got to get a better setup. Yep, this is a temporary problem, but we'll get back to where we were.
We will.
So much to say, so little time.
That's a good point, yeah.
So you're going to shut her down?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So thank you for listening and watching this episode of 10 Minutes with Andrew. Find us on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment. We'll be back soon with the next episode.
I would say in 2 Sundays.
2 Sundays, probably.
We might fluke into one next Sunday, not likely, but
Maybe.
if not, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you probably, 2 weeks.
Should be well into the Stanley Cup final by then.
Hopefully.
All right, brother. See you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on notifications to be notified when we upload new content. You can also connect with us at andrewchansey.com.